This is an 1823 tax receipt from a frontier county. It lists names, acreages, and a handful of dollars and cents. It looks like perfectly mundane paperwork. But for genealogists and historians, a fragile scrap of paper exactly like this is often the only surviving forensic proof that an early pioneer family actually existed. Look closely at the specific acre measurements and the final payment amounts. This is a literal receipt of survival. The defining moment an exhausted migrating family stopped walking, handed over scarce cash, and committed to a specific piece of ground. The people who signed these documents didn't arrive with machetes to hack a fresh path through an empty, untouched wilderness. The routes they took into the mountains were ancient pathways, already carved and maintained by Indigenous peoples over generations of travel and trade. The story of Appalachian settlement begins on this existing Indigenous infrastructure. These ancient trails acted as a geographical funnel, guiding massive waves of European migrants directly into the narrow corridors of the southern mountains. This map shows the primary artery of that migration, the Great Wagon Road. Early frontiersmen took those existing Indigenous trails and widened them, creating a rough dirt route that brought tens of thousands of settlers south from Pennsylvania right into the colonial backcountry. Starting in the north, the road absorbed a massive influx of Scots-Irish immigrants. They carried a culture of fierce independence and resilience, forged through decades of religious persecution and economic collapse back in Ulster. Traveling right alongside them were German Palatines. Fleeing their own religious and political persecution in the Rhineland, they moved south seeking open land, bringing highly productive, cooperative agricultural models with them. Joining this flow were English younger sons and laborers. Locked out of inheritance laws back east, they sought autonomy in a frontier region where hard work meant more than formal lineage. Families rarely traveled alone. Migrating alongside neighbors, they packed their entire lives into heavy covered Conestoga wagons, pulled slowly by oxen down rough dirt tracks. This single geographic artery acted as a massive demographic funnel. It took three distinct, historically isolated European cultures, pushed them down the exact same road, depositing them together into a harsh, shared mountain environment. When you examine an early frontier tax list, you see the immediate result of that migration. You will find Scots-Irish, English, and German surnames recorded on the very same page, settling side by side in the exact same tight valleys. Look at the scale of the landscape in this photograph. The isolating, unforgiving mountain terrain dwarfed these individual farmsteads. To survive here, these previously separate cultures had to abandon their old geographical divisions, cooperate with new neighbors, and synthesize entirely new methods of survival. European wheat struggled in the rocky ground, so corn became the anchor crop. It thrived in the thin mountain soil, providing enough yield to sustain both the settlers and their livestock. Pigs and cattle were left to roam freely through the forests, marked by specific notches cut into their ears to identify their owners during seasonal roundups. Hunting supplemented their diets, but European tracking methods didn't translate well to the dense Appalachian woods. Settlers relied heavily on Indigenous knowledge, specifically learning from Cherokee communities how to read game movement and anticipate the complex seasonal rhythms of the southern forest. They also lacked access to formal physicians. When illness struck, settlers adopted Indigenous medicinal practices, using local plants like Seneca snakeroot to treat severe fevers and respiratory ailments. Absolute geographical necessity and Indigenous practical knowledge provide, forging the emerging Appalachian culture into a brand new cultural alloy. This map illustrates migration's collision course. As borders pushed deeper, cultural exchange met intense pressure for land. This boiled over with the 1775 Treaty of Sycamore Shoals, allowing the Transylvania Company to acquire 20 million acres of Cherokee territory for one wagonload of trade goods. A prominent Cherokee leader named Dragon Canoe fiercely opposed the deal and refused to sign it. He warned the speculators that they had purchased a dark and bloody ground, a prediction that would prove devastatingly accurate. This bureaucratic transfer of land on paper ignited decades of violent conflict across the frontier. It accelerated a bitter struggle for territory that laid the groundwork for the forced removal of the Cherokee Nation in the 1830s. Back inside the settlements, the mechanics of daily life were recorded in frontier court minute books. In regions without established formal governments or reliable banking, these minute books served in place of formal contracts, documenting the daily realities of a newly blended community. Take the McAllister family in Augusta County, Virginia, as a case study. Their court records show them frequently trading directly with their German neighbors and engaging in small debt actions, proving these distinct groups were economically entangled on a daily basis. These same court minutes mandated the physical labor required to keep the community alive. The ledgers are filled with orders assigning local men to maintain critical road crews and serve mandatory rotations in the local militia. These mundane court transactions are the actual, recorded mechanics of how a diverse group of fearful, isolated migrants bound themselves together into a functioning society. The families who traveled the Great Wagon Road did not view themselves as historical figures building a nation. They were simply exhausted people trying to survive the coming winter. For modern genealogists, they left no memoirs or grand monuments. These surviving bureaucratic fragments, the fading tax lists, the court bonds, and the land grants, are the only lenses we have to intimately know the people who built the Appalachian world.
Thanks for watching. Please join us again next time for more history from the mountains. Don't forget to like and subscribe,